Do you know what rocks my boat? Is that we're all fighting amongst each other, right? We all see it every day. We see it on social media. We see it on TV. We see it in music. We see it in movies. We see it on the street even sometimes. We see it at protests. And we certainly are seeing it coming from the highest levels of government. That we are all fighting with each other all the time. And I think for the most part, we all get the same sense that it's being orchestrated a little bit, that somebody's behind all of the control, somebody's making all of that happen. But the thing is, it's not, at least what I believe, to be conspiracy in the traditional sense. I do not believe, nor should you, that there is a singular cabal of people at some elevated place that are forcing us all to fight with each other for some nefarious reason. Now, that does not mean, however, that I do not believe that there are not a small number of people that are benefiting from this same fighting that's going on all the time. And it leads me to believe that there is a purpose why it's being perpetuated. And that, I think, is the question that we all need to ask. As we sit here and fight with each other online and hate the other people and force ourselves to silo ourselves and others and try to figure out why we're right and they're wrong all the time. There's a better question, I think, that needs to get asked by all of us right now. And that question is, who benefits from this fighting that's going on right now, and how do we stop that? Now, I don't know. I'm kind of flying off the cusp here. I'm just going to kind of try to relay some thoughts that have been going through my mind for quite some time. And this may be a single video. This may end up becoming a series of videos that I make addressing the same issue. But it's my belief that we're picking the wrong enemies. Okay, so let me back up here. One of the things that I'm studying right now on a very superficial level is the end of capitalism, or what is by many considered to be post-capitalism. And this is the idea of what will the world look like as capitalism comes to an end. Now, that idea may be kind of superfluous or outside of the realm of normal thinking for you. So I'm gonna talk about a number of concepts here, but I'm really gonna dumb them down when I talk about them, not because I don't believe that you watching this are intelligent. I have no idea whether or not you are, but also just for the sake of not creating a diatribe talking about inept details that really have no bearing on whether or not these ideas are legitimate. I want to kind of simplify the conversation. And that is for the sake of anybody who may be watching it, but also for the sake of me getting this across, right? So let's take a look at where we're at right now and what I mean by the term post-capitalism or the end of capitalism. We are currently in a state, if you look at today's economy, and by economy I mean wages, cost of living, cost of commerce, cost of trade, but primarily wages, versus where they were in the 1950s. So from the 1950s until today. And if you look at the inception of the modern capitalist structure, post-economic development from the Industrial Revolution to today, there is a delineation from the 1950s on in which the post-war effort really changed the way that wages work for the everyday person, but more importantly, how rich the super rich got. And we've seen that really just kind of ramp up, and especially in the last 20 years, where CEOs of major corporations are making money that you can't even fathom. The wealth that people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, that form of wealth, and those are just the billionaires here in the United States. I mean, and these are upper echelon billionaires. These aren't even a billionaire, they're billionaires multiple times over. Those are just the American billionaires. That's not even getting into like the Saudi wealth or the money that you see in Qatar or the money that you see in Dubai, right? There is wealth today that exists in a way that we have not seen in many generations. And that was because the last time that we reached this level of wealth amongst the ultra wealthy was during the robber baron times, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts. And the United States government stepped in and stopped that. They passed laws to stop monopolies so that people wouldn't get ultra wealthy in that regard. We do not have the ability to do that today. There was a court case several years ago, you may have heard of it, and it was called Citizens United, where the Supreme Court essentially said that when it comes to money and politics, that corporations represent people. And those people, meaning corporations, could essentially invest unlimited amounts of money into creating political action committees and thus allowing their voices to have substantial volume when it came to influencing elections. And so if you have elected officials in Washington or even at the state level or even at the local level that are beholden to wealthy donors for getting them elected, those wealthy donors, who often represent corporations, have an unfair advantage in influencing political choices made by those elected officials. And so the days of seeing antitrust laws being enforced or new ones being passed that actually affect the way that wealth is being generated today is next to zero. And that is the thing that we need to understand. You will often hear people, especially MAGA people, who often voted for Donald Trump because they were looking for something different than the system that we currently have. You will often hear them complain about, well, politicians are the same on both sides. It doesn't matter. And to a certain extent, that is true. There is no doubt that a large number of Democratic candidates at all levels, from the, well, I don't know when I say at local levels. I don't think you see a lot of this in local level elections, but certainly at national level elections, whether it's the House of Representatives, the United States Senate, even some state senators, even some state assembly people in some states, even governors that are beholden to large influential amounts of money from political action campaigns to get them elected. And so thus, when they're in office, you will generally see them pass legislation that does not necessarily align with what their normal campaign message would be. Now, this is a problem, again, this is across the board. This is not just a Republican problem. It is not just a Democratic problem. It is a politics problem that we have in the United States here. So, what generally we talk about, going back to the beginning of this conversation, when we talk about post-capitalism, it's when that level of wealth is allowed to grow amongst the upper elite so much that the divide between the ultra wealthy and the poor becomes so substantial that the lack of wealth sucks in the middle class to a point where there is no longer a delineation, a natural delineation between the ultra wealthy, the middle class, and the poor, but rather there, as exists now, this large gap between the have and the have-nots. We talk about the 1%ers versus everybody else, right? That divide has become so substantial now that wealth in the United States, there was a time where it was considered, you were considered wealthy, for example, if you had income of $250,000 for a household. Well, that now is considered middle class. It's upper middle class, but it's just middle class. Now the wealthy are measured in the billions. No longer in the millions, it's the billions. So there comes a point where the ultra wealthy will recognize essentially that the pitchforks and the torches are coming. And many believe that that time is right now. That the rising inflation, along with high interest rates, along with a lofty stock market that is not in line with what the economy is actually doing, puts the ultra wealthy at risk for elections like we've seen with Mandami, people like AOC and Bernie, who are now garnering much more influence than they used to because people that are paying attention are aware that we need more politicians that are not beholden to these large political action committees that are funded by billionaires. And so what they're doing, and what I think is happening right now, is that those ultra billionaires are now influencing elected officials that they believe will create a police state, a way in which that we can turn the average American into, the term techno-serf is very popular today, or techno-feudalism has become very popular today, where they create an environment in which everyday average Americans are so beholden to the companies that are garnering all this wealth that they don't dare turn against it. And they do that through influencing us with social media, with streaming like entertainment services, with equipment that has monthly subscriptions, with even your automobiles, the cost, just the everyday costs of things, whether it's Uber, whether it's Airbnb, all of these like services that are all funded under a singular corporation, create an environment in which we cannot live, theoretically, without all these corporations. But they recognize that they're at a point where the economy at some point is going to force elected officials to do something about it. And I think we're at that tipping point right now. That's the idea of post-capitalism. Now, if you read the writings of people like Hegel, but later, more importantly, like Karl Marx, they talked about the post-capitalist nature is going to be to go to either socialism or communism, right? That was the whole backbone behind that. And one of the reasons why capitalists today, especially capitalists in the United States, have always turned the idea of communism and socialism into the boogeyman. Now, some of that is rightfully so, right? Because keeping that selfish nature and the corruption out of those types of systems is incredibly difficult, right? But people like Bernie and Mandami now and AOC are pushing a democratic socialist agenda, which is becoming increasingly popular for a reason. Because more and more people that understand that we are losing the economics of this country to a social and economic elite recognize that there is going to be a reckoning that's coming. So as I was thinking, this is going to end up turning into a longer conversation. So I just kind of wanted to start it here. It was kind of a ramble. What I'm going to do, and this is my goal for myself as I try to find better content here, I want this to be a conversation in which we develop this idea together, and I'm going to kind of structure it a little bit more. So what I would like to do in the coming days, I'm going to create another video. I want to talk about more of how we got there, and then with another video where this may be going. But when I first started this, I wanted this to be about finding a message for young men who are confused by the political system, who are confused by the manosphere and who they're pushing and who they're promoting in the political sphere. This is not a red versus blue thing. This is not a Democrat versus Republican thing. This is an indictment of our current political and economic structure. And that's what I want this to be. I think Donald Trump's the enemy for a number of reasons, but I don't think Donald Trump is the cause of what I'm talking about right now. He is a symptom of a problem that is facing billionaires in this country. And if him being bedfellows with Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos does not shine a light on that, I'm not sure what will. So that's what I want to talk about in the coming days and weeks. Before I create those videos, I want to hear from you. I know I have a very small but very dedicated group of people that follow me. I would encourage your comments. I would love questions. I would love thoughts. And I want to kind of formulate this and make this a communal effort to try to understand how we got here, where we're going, and how we as everyday people in this country can influence that in better ways. How we can find the right people to push for in elections. How we can influence the people that we already have operating our government to make decisions that better help all of us instead of just a small number of elite wealthy class. So that's what I have for you today. Again, I don't have any answers right now. I have thoughts, but I want to wait for another time where I can start to really dial these thoughts together with the help of you. So hopefully you'll come along for that journey and help me out with that. In the meantime, I'm Christopher Hess. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Hey, thanks again for watching the Christopher Hess Show. I'm really glad you took the time to watch. Now, if you liked what you saw, you can click right here. This will help you subscribe to my channel, or you can click over here for a video that YouTube thinks is one you would like to watch. Once again, thanks for watching and have a great day.